Do you know how to take apart your Spyderco Sage 5? If you don't, then this is the video for you. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Redline Blades YouTube channel. My name is Dan, and today I'm going to walk you through how to take apart and maintain your Spyderco Sage 5. The Sage is a staple in Spyderco's lineup. It's an incredibly popular EDC knife and makes a great option for almost anyone. The chances are pretty high that you have one of these in your collection, and if you're wondering how to maintain it, take it apart, service this, or add aftermarket parts, then hopefully your questions will be answered by this video. So stick around and let's get down to the table and check this one out. Here's everything that you need to disassemble your Spyderco Sage 5. I have a bit driver, I have my bits, Loctite, rubbing alcohol, some cloth patches, and some lubricant. So let's get into it. The first thing I need is my bit driver and a Torx size T8 bit right here. These are Weehaw brand bits. I recommend you invest in high quality bits. This will help prevent your screws from stripping out as you're taking apart your knives. To start out with this, I will unscrew the pivot. The Sage has a very nice user-friendly design in that all of the screws are size T8. Now I'm going to go to this body screw. And in addition to that, all of the screws are exactly the same size and dimensions. So you can use the same driver for all of them, and you can actually put all of the screws into any of these holes. So you don't need to worry about keeping these separate or anything, or mixing them up. Now, as soon as you do that, you should find this scale pops off like that. Here's the FRN scale. You can set that aside. And now the liner, sometimes this will bind up down here on the lanyard hole or these standoffs. So it can be helpful to push in at the pivot. This gets everything lined up and helps prevent it from binding, and then pull off at the butt. And that should make it easier to pop off. Now give it a wiggle and it comes off just like that. If you have problems, you can get like a plastic prying tool or something and wedge that in between and twist. Probably wouldn't use metal to avoid scratching or damaging anything, but with some wiggling it should come off pretty easily. Now I can take the blade off. I have both my washers on this. Sometimes your washer will be stuck here, sometimes on the blade. It doesn't really matter. Now I can pop out the pivot pin. I can take out the stop pin, and I'll set that aside. Here's your liner, set that aside, and take both the washers off the blade here. And here are all the components of the Sage 5. Now to clean everything, I'm just going to use a cloth with some rubbing alcohol. These are little gun cleaning patches. I really like these for servicing knives. They come in these large packs and they don't leave lint, which is very nice. Very easy to use. And they're very cheap. Now wipe off the blade. And I'm going to use my driver here to get into that pivot hole. Ah, here we go. The pivot bushing got stuck in the blade. Watch out for that. This may end up on the pivot pin like this, or it could stick in your blade, but be careful not to lose that. Very important piece. Make sure you clean out this bushing right here. Clean off the washers and the pivot pin. And then I'm going to clean inside the threads of the pivot and clean off one of these screws that I will then use to secure the pivot, and make sure that one's nice and clean because I'm going to put Loctite on that one. The other ones you don't really need to worry about, or at least I won't worry about here. If you have an issue with your screws coming loose, clean and Loctite all of them. Now everything is clean, I can start reassembly. I'll start with the pivot pin. So notice this is D-shaped. It has a D shape here, and there's a cutout on the liner here. So those have to line up. Make sure you line those up, and that should go in easily. And then I'm going to take a washer. With these washers, you'll notice on each side they look different. Find the side that has some shiny polished marks. That's the side that has been riding against the blade, and that's what you want to put outwards towards the blade as you reassemble it, because that is nice and broken in and smoothed out against the blade. So I've got some lubricant here. I like This is a synthetic grease. I like grease for washer knives because it stays put a little bit better and kind of doubles down on the toughness and longevity of washers. So now I have grease on there on the washers. I'm going to take just a little bit and put it on the pivot right here. Now I can slip the bushing on, and here it only takes a little bit of lubricant. You don't have to go crazy with it. Now I'm going to put a little bit on the outside of the bushing, and then I can pop the blade on just like that. Now I'll repeat with lubricant on this side, and you can use a grease, you can use an oil, whatever you have on hand. If you don't have a knife specific oil, then really anything could work. You can even use a gun oil. I've used that plenty of times. If you're looking for something cheap, Super Lube makes a few different options, and Daiwa Real Oil are two very cheap options that are easy to find on Amazon. Now I'll go ahead and pop the stop pin in. Then I'll take my second washer, find the side that is polished, and put that down. Now one last thing before I reassemble, I'm going to take this lubricant and just put a little bit right there on the detent hole, wipe away the excess, and that will keep the detent lubricated. Now I can take this liner and pop it on. Easiest to do with the blade open so that the spring pressure of the lock isn't fighting it open. And then take the scale and pop that on. To get this seated, you'll have to depress the lock to relieve the tension on the screws, but then you can get that seated and open it back up. And now your knife is together, it's not flying apart or anything. So I'll set it down at this point and start with the body screws. Put the first one in here. It doesn't matter the order that you put these in. You could start with the pivot, whatever you want to do. I'm starting with the body screws, so then I have the knife secure and everything, and now I can take the pivot and add some Loctite. This is blue Loctite. You always want to use blue or purple. Those are the two most mild types of Loctite. Never use red. Red is the permanent stuff, and that will have you stripping your screws if you use that. So just a little bit of Loctite there on the pivot. I'm going to get it nice and snug and see how the action feels. Now I'm guessing that's a little bit too loose. I can feel a little bit of play. So I'm going to tighten it just a little bit, and action feels good, and there's absolutely no play in the locked open position, no play in the closed position. The centering is perfect, and there's no play in the almost locked open position. So it's solid everywhere, action is smooth, we've done a good job. And that is everything you need to know about disassembling your Spyderco Sage 5. I hope you found this video helpful. If you have any remaining questions or any thoughts or comments, please go drop them down in the comment section below. We would love to hear your feedback or help you out with anything you need. If you have any suggestions for what you might want to see in a future video, what you want us to cover, please leave those down there as well. We would love to hear your feedback. And with all that said, thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.